You're not good enough for my daughter.
Then maybe you should.
Then maybe you should have raised her better.
What's your call sign, Princess? Admiral John Harlow's voice cut through the sleek conference room like a rusty blade through silk. The question hung in the air, dripping with condescension that could pickle eggs. Every head in Rachel's tech firm turned toward me, waiting for the entertainment to begin. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate precision, the kind of movement that had kept me alive in places where hesitation meant body bags. Reaper Zero, sir. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop in a hurricane. Admiral Harlow's smug grin melted faster than ice cream in August. His weathered face, decorated with enough military ribbons to start a parade, suddenly looked like he'd swallowed a live grenade. The other executives shifted in their leather chairs, probably wondering if they should duck for cover. I see, he managed, his voice now carrying all the authority of a deflated balloon. My wife Rachel shot me a look that could have frozen hellfire. Her perfectly manicured fingers gripped her Mont Blanc pen like she was planning to perform emergency surgery with it. Daniel, honey, maybe you could explain what that means for everyone? Honey. Right. The same tone she used when asking me to take out the garbage or pretend her father wasn't a complete jackass. It means I was very good at making bad people disappear, Admiral, permanently. I leaned back in my chair, letting that sink in. But don't worry, I'm retired now, mostly. The mostly part wasn't entirely true, but it sounded good. These corporate types loved a little mystery with their morning bagels. Rachel's business partner, a nervous little man named Peterson who always looked like he was about to wet himself, cleared his throat. Well, Daniel, we're certainly grateful for your security expertise on this project. Just doing my job. I glanced around the room, taking inventory. Glass walls, expensive art, the kind of place where people made millions moving money around on computers while real people did real work. Though I have to say, your current security setup couldn't stop a determined Girl Scout. Admiral Harlow's face turned an interesting shade of purple. Now see here, young man. I'm 41, Admiral. Haven't been young since my first tour in Afghanistan. I stood up, all 6 feet 2 inches of me unfolding like a switchblade. But I appreciate the compliment. Rachel kicked me under the table. Hard. The kind of kick that said, "Shut up before you embarrass me further." Too late for that, sweetheart. What Daniel means, Rachel said, her PR training kicking in like autopilot, is that he's very thorough in his assessments. That's why we hired Morgan Security Solutions. Morgan Security Solutions. My one-man operation that mostly involved installing alarm systems for paranoid rich people and catching cheating spouses. Not exactly the stuff of military legend, but it paid the bills and kept me from having to wear a suit every day. Right, I said. Very thorough. The meeting dragged on for another hour, filled with corporate buzzwords and PowerPoint slides that could cure insomnia. I spent most of it watching Rachel work the room, all smiles and professional charm. She was good at this game, I had to give her that. 15 years of marriage, and I still wasn't sure if the woman I fell in love with was real or just another performance. When we finally escaped to the parking garage, Rachel let me have it with both barrels. What the hell was that about? She jabbed her finger at my chest like she was trying to poke a hole through my sternum. Do you have any idea how important this contract is? Important enough to let your father treat me like something he scraped off his shoe? He's just protective. You know how military fathers are. I knew exactly how military fathers were. I'd been one myself before the divorce took away that privilege along with everything else. But Admiral Harlow wasn't protective. He was territorial, like a dog marking his favorite fire hydrant. He called me Princess, Rachel. So, you've been called worse. True enough. In the teams, we'd called each other things that would make a sailor blush. But those were my brothers. Admiral Harlow was just an old man trying to prove he still had teeth. "This isn't about him," I said, which was mostly true. "It's about respect." Rachel's expression softened slightly, the way it did when she wanted something. "Look, I know Daddy can be difficult, but this contract could set us up for life. Peterson's company is about to go public, and if we handle their security consultation, we're talking serious money." Serious money. Always came back to that with Rachel. Not that I blamed her entirely. Growing up as an admiral's daughter meant certain expectations. Private schools, country clubs, the kind of life where people measured success in square footage and German cars. "Fine," I said. "But next time your father wants to play alpha dog, remind him that some of us earned our stripes the hard way." She kissed my cheek, leaving a lipstick mark that smelled like expensive promises. "That's why I married you, tough guy. Nobody intimidates my husband." If only that were true. The drive home took us through the kind of neighborhood where people actually knew their neighbors' names. Tree-lined streets, modest houses with gardens instead of landscaping services, the occasional kid on a bicycle. It was a far cry from the glass towers downtown, but it felt real in a way that Rachel's world never quite managed. Our house sat at the end of Maple Street, a 2-story colonial that we'd bought when things were good between us, back when we still talked about kids and vacation plans and growing old together. Now it felt more like a museum, beautiful, expensive, and completely lifeless. I parked in the driveway and noticed Mrs. Henderson from next door peeking through her curtains. The woman had elevated nosiness to an art form. Give her 5 minutes, and she could tell you everyone's business within a 3-block radius. "Daniel?" She appeared on her porch like magic, wearing a floral dress that looked like it had been attacked by a garden center. "How was your meeting, dear?" "Educational, Mrs. Henderson." "Oh, that's wonderful. Rachel looked so professional this morning. Such a lovely suit." She leaned closer, dropping her voice to a stage whisper. "Though I have to say she's been working awfully late recently. I see her car pulling in at all hours." Something cold settled in my stomach. Work keeps her busy. "Oh, of course. Modern women and their careers." Mrs. Henderson's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Though I do worry about you young couples. All work and no play, you know." I knew. Better than she realized. Inside, the house felt like a mausoleum. Rachel had decorated it in what she called contemporary elegance, which apparently meant everything had to be white, gray, or some shade of beige that cost 3 times as much as regular beige. The only color came from a few carefully placed art pieces that looked like someone had sneezed paint onto canvas and charged $5,000 for the privilege. I grabbed a beer from the kitchen and headed down to my office in the basement. This was my space, the one room Rachel hadn't been allowed to sterilize. Military memorabilia covered the walls, photos of my old unit, commendations, a folded flag from a funeral I tried not to think about. My desk was an old metal thing I'd bought at a surplus store, scarred and functional, like everything else that mattered in my life. The computer hummed to life, and I pulled up the security assessment for Peterson's company. Standard corporate setup, keycard access, security cameras that probably hadn't been updated since the Clinton administration, and enough blind spots to hide a small army. It would take maybe 2 weeks to design a proper system, another month to implement it. Easy money, if I could stomach working with Admiral Harlow breathing down my neck. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "Saw you at the meeting today. Impressive performance." I stared at the screen, trying to place the number. Could be anyone from the meeting, though most of them had seemed too intimidated to make contact. I typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "A friend. We should talk." Great. Anonymous messages from mysterious friends. Just what my day needed. I was about to delete the conversation when another message appeared. "It's about Rachel." My finger hovered over the delete button. 3 words that could mean anything or nothing. Could be a prank, could be someone trying to stir up trouble, could be something worse. But I didn't delete it. Instead, I set the phone aside and pulled up a different program on my computer. One that wasn't exactly legal, but wasn't exactly illegal either, depending on how you interpreted certain privacy laws. The kind of program that had kept me and my team alive in places where trust was a luxury nobody could afford. If someone wanted to play games, I'd play. But I'd play by my rules. The phone buzzed again. This time it was Rachel. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I checked the time. 6:30. Early, even by her standards. Mrs. Henderson's words echoed in my head. I see her car pulling in at all hours. I finished my beer and opened another one. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the basement windows with long shadows. Somewhere upstairs, the house settled with small creaks and sighs, the sounds of a home that was slowly becoming empty. My computer chimed softly. The trace program had found something. The anonymous number belonged to a burner phone, purchased 3 days ago with cash. Whoever was texting me didn't want to be identified, which meant they either had something to hide or something to reveal. Or both. I typed a response. "Tomorrow, noon, Murphy's Bar on 5th Street. The reply came back instantly. "See you there, Reaper." I stared at that last word for a long time. Very few people knew my old call sign, and even fewer would use it casually. This was either someone from my past or someone who'd done their homework. Either way, tomorrow was going to be interesting. I spent the rest of the evening going through Rachel's recent credit card statements, something I probably should have done months ago. The charges told a story I didn't like. Expensive restaurants I'd never been to, hotel stays during supposed business trips, charges at stores that didn't match her usual shopping patterns. By the time I heard her car in the driveway, it was past 11. I closed the laptop and headed upstairs, making sure to look appropriately domestic when she walked through the door. "Hey," she said, dropping her purse on the hall table. "How was your evening?" "Quiet. You?" "Long meeting with Peterson's legal team. Contracts are more complicated than we thought." She kicked off her heels and padded toward the stairs in her stocking feet. "I'm exhausted." "I bet." She paused at the bottom of the stairs, studying my face. "You okay? You seem, I don't know, distant. Just thinking about the security assessment. Your father's right about one thing. This is a big contract." Her smile was genuine, or at least a good imitation. "It is, and you're going to do great. You always do." She kissed me goodnight, the same perfunctory peck we'd been exchanging for months. But tonight, I caught something else in her scent. Cologne that wasn't mine, subtle, but definitely masculine. "Rachel?" She turned back, one hand on the banister. "Yeah? I love you." For just a moment, her composure cracked. Something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. Then the mask slipped back into place. "I love you too." She disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with the echoes of a lie. Murphy's Bar looked exactly like what it was, a place where people went to forget their problems or create new ones. The neon sign flickered intermittently, casting sickly red light across the cracked sidewalk. Inside, the decor hadn't changed since the Carter administration, all dark wood and darker secrets. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a whiskey, and claimed a corner booth with good sightlines. Old habits. In my line of work, both past and present, paranoia wasn't a character flaw. It was a survival skill. The lunch crowd was typical dive bar fare. Construction workers grabbing quick beers, a few unemployed guys making their unemployment checks last, and one woman at the bar who looked like she'd been there since breakfast. The bartender, a thick-set man with arms like tree trunks, nodded when I walked in, but otherwise left me alone. At exactly noon, the door opened and a familiar figure walked in. Frankie Vega hadn't changed much in the 5 years since I'd seen him. Same compact build, same careful way of moving that marked him as former military. His hair had gone gray at the temples, and he wore civilian clothes now, jeans, work boots, leather jacket, but he still carried himself like a man who expected trouble. "Reaper," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Frankie." I signaled the bartender for another round. "Been a while." "Too long." He accepted his beer with a nod of thanks. "You look good. Civilian life treating you well?" "Can't complain. You?" "Private investigation, mostly. Cheating spouses, insurance fraud, the occasional missing person. Not exactly saving the world, but it pays the bills." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, two old soldiers pretending this was just a social call. But Frankie's eyes kept scanning the room and his hands stayed visible on the table, habits that died hard. "So," I said finally, "it's about Rachel." His expression grew serious. "Yeah, it is." "How long have you known?" 3 weeks. I was working another case, following some guy's wife to a hotel. Saw your wife going into the same place with a man who definitely wasn't you. The whiskey tasted like ashes. "You're sure?" "Daniel, I've been doing this for 8 years. I know what I saw." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. "Photos if you want them, though I'm guessing you already suspected." I took the envelope but didn't open it. Some things you couldn't unsee. "Who is he?" "Ethan Blackwell. Works at Peterson's company, same as your wife. 36, unmarried, drives a BMW that costs more than most people make in a year. Lives in one of those new condos downtown, the kind with a doorman and a gym." "How long?" "Hard to say. Based on what I observed, they're comfortable together. This isn't new." I drained my whiskey and signaled for another. The alcohol wasn't helping, but it gave me something to do with my hands besides breaking things. "There's more," Frankie said quietly. "Of course there is." I did some digging on Blackwell. Guy's got a history. Sexual harassment complaint at his last job. Settled out of court. Rumored to have a thing for married women. And get this, he's Admiral Harlow's godson. That hit like a punch to the gut. "Come again?" "Blackwell's father and your father-in-law served together way back. They've been family friends for decades. The Admiral's known this kid since he was in diapers." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Admiral Harlow's attitude at the meeting, his obvious disdain for me, the way he'd called me princess. He hadn't just been protecting his daughter, he'd been protecting his godson's affair with his daughter. Son of a bitch. Gets worse. I think your wife's friends know. I've seen her meeting with that Taylor woman, lots of intense conversations. And yesterday, I watched them have lunch with 2 other women from her office. Body language suggested they were discussing something serious. Taylor Lynn. Rachel's best friend since college, a social media maven who treated gossip like currency. If Taylor knew about the affair, half the city would know within a week. "They're planning something," I said. "That's my read. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" Good question. The old me, the Reaper, would have handled this with extreme prejudice. But that was a different life, a different set of rules. Here in the civilian world, you couldn't just make problems disappear with a well-placed bullet. "I need more information," I said finally. "Can you keep watching them?" "Already am. But Daniel, you need to know. This is going to get ugly. When affairs come out, especially in small business circles like this, everyone takes sides. And right now, your wife has home field advantage." He was right. Rachel had the connections, the social network, the family money. I had military training and a small security business that depended largely on word-of-mouth referrals. In a public relations war, I'd be outgunned from the start. What about evidence? Something that would hold up in divorce court? Working on it, but these days adultery doesn't carry the weight it used to, especially if she can claim you were emotionally distant or financially controlling. I've never controlled her finances. Doesn't matter, it's about the narrative, and your wife's in the narrative business. I opened the envelope and glanced at the photos. Rachel and Ethan Blackwell entering a hotel, holding hands, kissing in the lobby. They looked happy together, comfortable in a way Rachel and I hadn't been in years. How much do I owe you? Nothing. This one's on the house. Frankie? We're brothers, Daniel. That doesn't change just because we're not in uniform anymore. He finished his beer and stood to leave. But if you want my advice, don't wait for them to make the first move. In my experience, the person who controls the timeline controls the outcome. After he left, I sat in the bar for another hour, nursing my whiskey and thinking. The smart play would be to hire a lawyer, file for divorce, and try to salvage what I could from the wreckage. Cut my losses and move on. But I'd never been particularly smart about these things. My phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. Dinner with Taylor tonight. Probably late again. I typed back, no problem, have fun. But I wasn't going to sit home like a good little husband while my wife planned my destruction. If Frankie was right about the timeline, it was time to take control. I paid my tab and walked outside into the afternoon sun. The city looked different now, sharper somehow, like someone had adjusted the contrast. Every face could be a potential ally or enemy. Every conversation could be about me. My first stop was the bank. Time to see exactly where we stood financially. The meeting with our account manager, a nervous young man named Bradley who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, confirmed my worst fears. Rachel had been moving money, not huge amounts, nothing that would trigger automatic alerts, but steady transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. These withdrawals, I said, pointing to the statements. What can you tell me about them? Bradley adjusted his tie nervously. Well, they're all properly authorized by Mrs. Morgan, transfers to what appears to be a legal retainer account and, a separate savings account at First National. Legal retainer? Yes, sir. Morrison, Klein and Associates. They're a family law firm. Family law, divorce attorneys. And the savings account? I can't provide details on accounts at other institutions, but the transfer amounts suggest Mrs. Morgan is, well, perhaps planning for financial independence. Planning for financial independence. Corporate speak for, your wife is getting ready to leave you and take half your money with her. Thank you, Bradley. You've been very helpful. Is there anything else I can... Actually, yes. I'd like to set up some additional security on our joint accounts. 2 signature requirements for any withdrawals over $1,000. Bradley's face went pale. Sir, that would require both account holders to... I know what it requires. Can you do it or not? Yes, sir. But Mrs. Morgan will need to sign the authorization as well. I'll handle that. I left the bank with copies of all our financial records and a clear picture of Rachel's strategy. She was preparing for war, building up her resources while keeping me in the dark. Classic military tactics, actually. I had to admire the execution, even if I hated the target. My next stop was Morrison, Klein and Associates. The law firm occupied 3 floors of a downtown office building, all marble and mahogany, the kind of place that charged $500 an hour and made you feel grateful for the privilege. I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked across the street and waited. If Rachel was meeting with lawyers, I wanted to know when and how often. 2 hours later, my patience was rewarded. Rachel's silver Lexus pulled into the parking garage beneath the building. She emerged 10 minutes later, looking every inch the successful executive in her tailored suit and designer heels. But she wasn't alone. Ethan Blackwell climbed out of the passenger seat, straightening his tie and checking his reflection in the car window. They walked into the building together, her hand resting possessively on his arm. So it wasn't just an affair anymore. They were planning a future together. I took photos with my phone, making sure to capture the timestamps and license plates. If this was going to be a war, I needed ammunition. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. Daniel, this is Admiral Harlow. Admiral, what can I do for you? I think we need to talk, man to man. About what? You know damn well about what. My office, 6 o'clock. The line went silent. I checked my watch. 4:30. Just enough time to go home, shower, and prepare for whatever the Admiral had planned. The house felt different when I walked in, like a stage set waiting for actors who would never arrive. I went upstairs to our bedroom and opened Rachel's closet, looking for... I wasn't sure what. Evidence, maybe, or just some sign of the woman I'd married. What I found was a second phone hidden behind a jewelry box. The screen was locked, but it only took me 30 seconds to bypass the security. Rachel had always been careless with passwords, using the same combinations for everything. The text messages told the whole story. Months of conversations with Ethan, starting professional and gradually becoming personal, then intimate, then explicit. Plans for weekend getaways, complaints about her difficult husband, discussions about their future together, and messages with Taylor, coordinating alibis and discussing strategy. Taylor: "Are you sure about this? Daniel's not going to just roll over." Rachel: "He doesn't have a choice. Daddy says Ethan's lawyer can make things very difficult if Daniel tries to fight." Taylor: "What about the business?" Rachel: "What about it? It's mostly my contacts anyway. Daniel can keep his little security company." Ethan: "Don't worry about him. Guys like that, all they understand is force. Once he realizes he's outgunned, he'll fold." I took screenshots of everything, then put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. At 5:30, I put on my best suit and drove to Admiral Harlow's office. The building was mostly empty, just a few lights scattered across the upper floors. The Admiral's suite occupied the top floor, with windows overlooking the harbor. His secretary had gone home, leaving me to find my own way to his private office. He was waiting behind his desk, still in uniform despite being officially retired. The walls were covered with military photographs and commendations, a lifetime of service to country and flag. Under different circumstances, I might have respected the man. "Sit down, son." "I'll stand, thanks." He studied me for a long moment, probably trying to decide if I was being insubordinate or just cautious. "You know why you're here?" "I have some ideas." "Rachel is my daughter, my only child. I've spent 30 years making sure she has everything she needs to succeed in life." "Including a married boyfriend?" His face darkened. "Ethan Blackwell is a good man from a good family. He'll take care of her properly. He's also sleeping with another man's wife." "Marriages end, son. It's unfortunate, but it happens. The question is whether you're going to be reasonable about this or if we need to do things the hard way." I felt something cold and familiar settling into my chest, the same feeling I'd had in Afghanistan when insurgents tried to threaten my team. "What's the hard way, Admiral? You're a small business owner in a small community. Your reputation is everything. It would be a shame if word got out that you were unstable, threatening, the kind of man who might become violent when cornered." "Is that a threat?" "It's a reality. Rachel has friends, connections, resources. You have what? A handful of security contracts and some old military buddies. This doesn't have to be a fight, but if it becomes one, you'll lose." I walked to the window and looked out at the harbor. The sun was setting, painting the water red and gold. Beautiful and peaceful, the kind of view that cost millions of dollars and probably wasn't worth a damn when the bills came due. "You're right about one thing, Admiral. I am just a small business owner. I install alarm systems and catch cheating spouses, not exactly the stuff of legends." "Then we understand each other. But here's the thing you might have forgotten." I turned back to face him. "I used to hunt people for a living. People a lot smarter and more dangerous than you or your godson, and I was very, very good at it." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining the situation. You want to play games with my marriage, my business, my life? Fine. But remember, I know how to play too, and I don't lose." I walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, an admiral?" Next time you want to have a man-to-man conversation, you might want to make sure your daughter isn't planning strategy sessions with her boyfriend in your building's parking garage. Just a thought. His face went white. You were watching. I'm always watching now. Have a good evening, sir. I left him sitting behind his desk, probably wondering how much I knew and what I planned to do about it. The answer was simple. Everything and anything necessary. The war had officially begun. The next morning brought rain and a text message from Frankie. Coffee? I have news. We met at a diner near the waterfront, the kind of place that served coffee strong enough and didn't ask questions about why two men might need to have a private conversation at 7 a.m. Frankie slid a manila folder across the table. Your wife's been busy. I opened it to find surveillance photos, financial records, and what looked like a timeline of events. Talk to me. She met with her lawyer yesterday afternoon, like you suspected. But she also made 3 other stops: a real estate agent, a private investigator, and a bank that's not your usual bank. She's hiring her own PI? Name's Marcus Webb, expensive, discreet, and not particularly ethical. Word is, he specializes in digging up dirt on cheating husbands. The irony wasn't lost on me. What kind of dirt? Anything that would make you look bad in divorce proceedings. Hidden assets, substance abuse, violence, infidelity of your own. Webb's good at finding things that don't exist and making them look real. I sipped my coffee and studied the photos. Rachel meeting with various professionals, always with Ethan at her side. They looked like a couple planning a wedding, not a divorce. What about the real estate agent? That's interesting. She's not looking at houses. She's looking at commercial properties, specifically office space for a new PR firm. She's starting her own company? Looks like it. And guess who her first major client is going to be? Peterson's firm. Bingo. She's planning to take the contract with her when she leaves. Probably already has agreements in place. I felt a surge of admiration despite myself. Rachel wasn't just leaving me. She was systematically dismantling everything we'd built together and rebuilding it with Ethan. It was brilliant, ruthless, and completely illegal. She can't do that. The Peterson contract is with my company. Is it? Because I looked at the paperwork and it's written pretty broadly. If Rachel can argue that she brought the client and did most of the work, she might have a case. What about the new bank? Setting up accounts for her new business. Also moving personal assets out of your joint accounts bit by bit. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger alerts, but steady and consistent. I closed the folder and leaned back in my seat. She's been planning this for months. At least. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, Daniel. This is a coordinated campaign. Any good news? Frankie grinned. Actually, yeah. I've been monitoring Webb's communications. Don't ask how. And he's coming up empty. You're a frustratingly clean target. No secret bank accounts, no gambling debts, no mysterious trips or suspicious phone calls. The worst thing he's found is that you drink whiskey alone sometimes. That's it? That's it, which means they're going to have to get creative, and creative means sloppy. I paid for coffee and we walked outside into the rain. The harbor looked gray and choppy, matching my mood perfectly. I need you to do something for me, I said. Name it. I want you to follow Taylor Lynn, Rachel's best friend, works in social media marketing. If they're planning something, she'll know about it. You think she's involved? I think she's Rachel's closest confidant and biggest enabler. If there's a weak link in their operation, it's her. Frankie nodded. What about you? What's your next move? I'm going to work. Like a good, oblivious husband who doesn't suspect a thing. That's your plan? Pretend nothing's happening? Sometimes the best defense is to let your enemy think they're winning. Rachel expects me to be passive, to roll over and accept whatever she's planning. I'm going to give her exactly what she expects, right up until I don't. We parted ways in the parking lot. I drove to the office, a small suite in a converted warehouse that housed my entire business operation. Morgan's Security Solutions wasn't much to look at. 2 rooms, basic furniture, and enough electronic equipment to monitor half the city, but it was mine. My assistant, Jenny, was already at her desk when I arrived. She was a former police dispatcher in her 50s, efficient and discreet, the kind of employee who made everything run smoothly without drama. "Morning, boss. Coffee's fresh and you have 3 messages." "Thanks. Anything urgent?" "Peterson's people called twice. They want to schedule the security assessment, and your wife called, said to remind you about dinner with her parents tonight." Dinner with the Harlows. I'd forgotten completely. "What time?" 7 o'clock at the country club." Perfect. A public venue where Admiral Harlow could continue his psychological warfare while maintaining plausible deniability. "Anything else?" "New client consultation at 10. Marital surveillance case." The irony was getting thick enough to cut with a knife. I spent the morning working on legitimate business, reviewing security protocols for a local bank, updating alarm systems for 2 residential clients, and preparing the Peterson assessment. Normal work that felt increasingly surreal given the circumstances. The new client turned out to be a middle-aged businessman named Robert Chen, who suspected his wife of having an affair. He sat in my office, nervous and angry, describing the same signs I'd been ignoring in my own marriage. "She's working late constantly," he said. "New clothes, new perfume, secretive about her phone. Last week I found hotel receipts in her purse." "How long has this been going on?" "Months, maybe longer. I keep telling myself there's an innocent explanation, but—" He shrugged helplessly. "Mr. Chen, I have to ask, what do you want to happen here? Do you want to save your marriage or end it?" "I want to know the truth, whatever it is." I quoted him my standard rate and explained the process: surveillance, documentation, evidence gathering. The same services Frankie was providing for me, the same services Marcus Webb was probably trying to provide for Rachel. "One more question," Chen said as he prepared to leave. "In your experience, how often are these suspicions wrong?" I thought about that for a moment. "In 15 years of doing this work, Mr. Chen, I've been hired to investigate maybe 200 cases of suspected infidelity. I found evidence of an affair in 198 of them." "What about the other 2? "The other 2 were worse than affairs. One spouse was embezzling from their business, the other was planning to fake their own passing for the insurance money." Chen left, looking like a man walking to his own execution. I knew the feeling. At 6:30, I drove home to change for dinner. The house was empty. Rachel was probably getting ready at Ethan's place, but I could smell her perfume lingering in the bedroom. The same scent I'd noticed on her clothes, now permanently associated with betrayal. I put on my best suit and drove to the Riverside Country Club, a sprawling complex of manicured lawns and old money that served as Admiral Harlow's natural habitat. The dining room was filled with the kind of people who measured their worth in stock portfolios and social connections. Rachel was already there, seated at a table near the windows with her parents. She looked stunning in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her mother, Patricia, was a refined woman in her 60s who had perfected the art of polite conversation and social manipulation. "Daniel!" Patricia rose to kiss my cheek. "You look wonderful. How's business?" "Can't complain, Mrs. Harlow." Admiral Harlow shook my hand with the enthusiasm of a man handling a rotten fish. "Son, glad you could join us." The conversation over dinner was a masterpiece of passive aggression. Patricia asked about my work with the kind of interest that suggested she was humoring a child. Admiral Harlow made subtle digs about the importance of real careers and financial stability. Rachel played the dutiful daughter, agreeing with her parents while shooting me apologetic looks that might have been genuine. "Daniel's company is doing very well," Rachel said during a lull in the conversation. "The Peterson contract alone will be worth 6 figures. "Assuming it goes through," the Admiral said. "Government contracts can be tricky. Lots of background checks, security clearances, that sort of thing. One wrong move, and the whole thing disappears. The threat was subtle but clear. Cross us, and we'll make sure you lose the contract. I'm not worried, I said. My background checks out just fine. Of course it does, Patricia said quickly. We're so proud of Daniel's service record. It takes a special kind of man to do what he did. What exactly did you do? Admiral Harlow asked. Your file is mostly classified. I kept bad people from hurting good people. How wonderfully vague. Rachel touched my hand across the table. Daddy, you know Daniel can't talk about most of his missions. Of course, operational security and all that. The Admiral's smile was razor thin. Though I have to wonder, how does a man transition from that kind of work to installing alarm systems? Same skill set, I said. Different target audience. The conversation continued like that for 2 hours, polite on the surface, poisonous underneath. By the time we said our goodbyes, I felt like I'd been through a psychological boxing match. In the parking lot, Rachel caught my arm. I'm sorry about Daddy. He's just protective. Protective of what? Of me. Of our family's reputation. She looked genuinely distressed, or at least she was a good actress. He doesn't mean anything personal. Everything he said tonight was personal. Daniel. She stepped closer, and I caught that scent again. Ethan's cologne mixed with her perfume. Are we okay? You've seemed distant lately. For a moment, I was tempted to tell her everything, to confront her with the photos, the evidence, the knowledge that our marriage was already over in everything but name, but that would mean giving up the advantage of surprise. I'm fine, just stressed about work. The Peterson contract? Among other things. She kissed me goodnight, the same perfunctory gesture that had become our routine. I love you. I love you too. Another lie, but lies were becoming the foundation of our relationship. I drove home alone while Rachel went to whatever excuse she'd prepared for the evening. Probably another late meeting, another girls' night out, another carefully constructed alibi. But I didn't go home immediately. Instead, I drove to Ethan Blackwell's condo building and parked across the street. 20 minutes later, Rachel's Lexus pulled into the garage. I sat there for another hour, watching the lights in what I assumed was Ethan's apartment, imagining what they were doing up there. Planning their future together, maybe. Celebrating another successful evening of deception, laughing about the stupid husband who didn't suspect a thing. My phone buzzed. Text from Frankie. Taylor Lynn just posted on Instagram, girls' night at the Marriott downtown. Thought you should know. I looked up at the lights in Ethan's apartment, then at the message on my phone. Girls' night at the Marriott, while Rachel was actually 20 miles away in her lover's bed. The lies were getting sloppy, which meant they were getting confident, which meant it was almost time to make my move. I drove home through empty streets, past houses where normal couples were probably watching television or getting ready for bed, living ordinary lives that didn't involve surveillance and betrayal and carefully planned revenge. But ordinary had never been my specialty. Tomorrow, I would start fighting back. I woke up at 5 a.m. with a plan. The beauty of being married to someone for 15 years is that, their routines, their habits, their weaknesses. Rachel was methodical in her deceptions, but she was also predictable. Every Tuesday, she had lunch with her book club, except there hadn't been a book club in 6 months. Every Thursday, she worked late at the office, except I'd driven by her office building enough times to know her car wasn't there. Today was Thursday. I called Jenny and told her I'd be working from home, then settled into my basement office with coffee and a clear mission. If Rachel wanted to play games, I'd give her a game she'd never forget. My first call was to Peterson's company. I asked to speak with Ethan Blackwell directly. Ethan speaking. Mr. Blackwell, this is Daniel Morgan from Morgan Security Solutions. I wanted to follow up on some details for your security assessment. Oh, right. Actually, I think Rachel's handling most of the coordination on that project. I understand you two work closely together. A pause. We're colleagues, yes. Great. I was hoping we could meet today to go over some technical specifications. Are you free for lunch? Actually, I have a lunch meeting already scheduled. No problem. How about coffee this afternoon? Say 3 o'clock at that place on 5th Street, Grinder's Coffee. Another pause. Longer this time. I'm not sure that's necessary. Like I said, Rachel's really the point person. Mr. Blackwell, I think it's important that we establish a good working relationship. After all, we'll be seeing a lot of each other over the next few months. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Fine. 3 o'clock. Looking forward to it. I hung up and immediately called Frankie. I need you to do something for me. What's up? I'm meeting with Ethan Blackwell this afternoon. I want you to follow Rachel. If she's not where she says she'll be, I want documentation. You're making your move? Phase 1. It's time to let them know I'm not as stupid as they think. My second call was to Marcus Webb, the private investigator Rachel had hired to dig up dirt on me. I used a burner phone and a fake name. Webb Investigations. Mr. Webb, I understand you specialize in marital investigations. That's correct. What can I do for you? I need someone followed. I think my wife is cheating, and I need proof. I see. Can you come in for a consultation? Actually, I'm calling because a friend recommended you. He said you recently helped him with a similar situation. Daniel Morgan? A long pause. I'm sorry, I don't discuss other clients. Of course not, but he said you were very thorough, very creative in your approach. Mr. Smith. John Smith. Mr. Smith, I think there might be some confusion. I'd be happy to discuss your case, but I can't comment on anyone else's. I understand. Maybe we could meet tomorrow. I'll call back. I hung up before he could respond. The call served two purposes. It confirmed that Webb was working for Rachel, and it would make him nervous about how much I might know about his investigation. At noon, I drove to the office to pick up some equipment I'd need for the afternoon. Jenny looked up from her computer when I walked in. How's the Peterson assessment coming along? Making progress. Any messages? Your wife called. She said she'll be working late again tonight. Something about a client dinner. Client dinner? Right. Thanks. I'll probably be out for the rest of the day. I loaded a small surveillance kit into my car. Nothing illegal, just standard equipment that any security professional might carry. Digital camera with telephoto lens, voice recorder, GPS tracker, tools of the trade. Grinder's Coffee was a trendy place near the business district, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. I arrived early and chose a table with a clear view of the entrance and street parking. Ethan Blackwell walked in at exactly 3 o'clock, looking like a man headed to his own execution. He was tall and lean, with the kind of carefully maintained appearance that screamed expensive personal trainer and monthly spa treatments. Handsome in a generic way, like a stock photo model. Mr. Morgan? He approached my table hesitantly. Call me Daniel. Coffee? I'm fine, thanks. He sat down across from me, his body language screaming discomfort. Good. So, I said, pulling out a tablet and opening what looked like technical specifications. I wanted to go over the security requirements for your building. Like I said, Rachel's really the point person on this project. Right, Rachel, my wife. I looked up from the tablet and met his eyes. You know, it's funny. She talks about you a lot at home. His face went pale. She does? Oh, yes. Ethan this, Ethan that. She's very impressed with your expertise. We work well together. I bet you do. In fact, I was thinking we should all have dinner sometime. You, me, Rachel, maybe your girlfriend, if you have one. I'm not seeing anyone right now. Really? Attractive guy like you? I find that hard to believe. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Look, Mr. Morgan, Daniel, I'm not sure what this is about, but I have another meeting to get to. Of course you do. But before you go, I wanted to show you something. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos, making sure he could see the screen. Pictures of him and Rachel entering the hotel, holding hands, kissing in the lobby. Interesting building, don't you think? Great architecture. I've always been fascinated by hotels, all those people coming and going thinking nobody notices. Ethan's face went from pale to gray. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm just making conversation. I put the phone away. You know, Ethan, can I call you Ethan? I've always believed in being direct. Life's too short for games. What do you want? I want you to understand something. I know exactly what's going on. I know about the affair. I know about the lawyers. I know about the business plans. I know everything. He started to stand up. I think I should go. Sit down. Something in my voice made him freeze. The same tone I'd used with insurgents in Afghanistan, the voice that said compliance wasn't optional. He sat back down. Here's what's going to happen, I continued conversationally. You're going to end this thing with my wife. Today. You're going to tell her it was fun, but it's over. You're going to withdraw from the Peterson contract negotiations, and you're going to disappear from our lives. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm explaining reality. See, you've made a fundamental error in judgment. You looked at me and saw a small-town security consultant, maybe a little past his prime, definitely outgunned by you and your connections. I leaned forward slightly. But what you didn't see is that I spent 15 years hunting people who were smarter, better armed, and more dangerous than you could ever imagine, and I never lost. Not once. Rachel will do whatever serves Rachel's interests, and right now, her interests are about to become very complicated. I stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, Ethan. And remember, I'm always watching now. I left him sitting there, probably trying to figure out if I was bluffing. I wasn't. My phone rang as I walked to my car. Frankie. You're going to love this, he said. Your wife isn't at any client dinner. She's at Taylor Lynn's apartment and they've got company. What kind of company? Marcus Webb and another guy I don't recognize. Looks like a strategy session. Can you get audio? Working on it. But Daniel, you need to know, they've got surveillance photos of you. I saw Webb showing them around when they were standing near the window. Photos of what? You meeting with me, you at the bank, you outside Blackwell's building last night. They've been watching you watch them. The game was getting more complex by the minute. Anything else? Yeah. There's a van parked down the street from your house. 2 guys inside, professional looking. They're not cops. Private security? That's my guess. Either they're planning to search your place, or they're waiting for you to do something stupid so they can document it. I thought about that as I drove home. Rachel and her team were making their move, probably accelerating their timeline because of my meeting with Ethan, which meant I needed to accelerate mine. The van was exactly where Frankie had said it would be, a nondescript white panel van with tinted windows. I drove past without slowing down and parked 2 blocks away, then walked back through the neighbors' yards. Mrs. Henderson was in her garden, pretending to water her flowers, while obviously watching the van. Afternoon, Mrs. Henderson. Oh, Daniel, you startled me. She looked genuinely flustered. I was just wondering about that van. It's been there for hours. Probably contractors, I said. You know how it is in this neighborhood. Everyone's always renovating something. I suppose. Though it seems odd they're not actually working on anything. I went inside through the back door and immediately activated the security system I'd installed when we first moved in. Not the basic alarm system Rachel knew about, but a more sophisticated setup that would alert me to any unauthorized entry. Then I went to my basement office and started making calls. The first was to my lawyer, a sharp woman named Catherine Mills, who specialized in divorce and business law. Catherine, it's Daniel Morgan. I need to see you tomorrow morning. Emergency consultation. What kind of emergency? The kind where my wife is planning to divorce me, steal my business, and frame me for something I didn't do. How's 9 o'clock? I'll clear my schedule. The second call was to an old friend from my military days, a guy named Tom Bradley who now worked in corporate security for a major tech company. Tom, it's Daniel. I need a favor. Name it. I need a complete background check on someone. Financial records, employment history, criminal background, everything you can find. Who's the target? Ethan Blackwell. Works for Peterson Industries here in town. Give me 24 hours. The third call was to Jenny at the office. Jenny, I need you to do something for me. Call Peterson Industries and schedule a meeting with their CEO for tomorrow afternoon. Tell them it's about security concerns with the current project. What kind of security concerns? The kind that could shut down their government contract if they're not addressed immediately. I spent the rest of the evening preparing for war. Financial records, business documents, copies of all communications with Peterson Industries. If Rachel wanted to fight dirty, I'd show her what dirty really looked like. At 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. Working very late tonight. Don't wait up. I looked out the window. The van was still there. I typed back, no problem, love you. Then I turned off all the lights in the house and went to my basement office to wait. If they wanted to search my home, they'd have to get past me first, and I was very good at making that difficult. At midnight, I heard the first footstep on my back porch. Game time. The footsteps were careful, professional. Whoever was outside knew what they were doing. I watched through my security monitors as two figures in dark clothing approached the back door, one carrying what looked like electronic equipment. I had three choices: call the police, confront them directly, or let them break in and document everything for evidence. The first option would alert Rachel that I knew about the surveillance. The second could get messy if they were armed. I chose option 3, with a twist. Moving silently through the house, I positioned myself in the front hallway with a clear view of the back door and activated the high-definition security cameras I'd installed throughout the house. Whatever they were planning to plant or steal, I'd have it all on video. The back door opened with barely a whisper. Professional lockpicks, not brute force. Two men entered, both wearing black clothing and latex gloves. One immediately went to the kitchen and began opening drawers and cabinets. The other headed upstairs toward the bedrooms. I gave them 10 minutes to work, letting the cameras capture everything. They were good, methodical, careful not to disturb anything unnecessarily. But they weren't looking for evidence of wrongdoing. They were planting it. The man in the kitchen slipped a small plastic bag behind the coffee maker. Drugs, probably cocaine, just enough to suggest personal use. The one upstairs was in my bedroom, doing something with Rachel's jewelry box. When they finished and left the same way they'd entered, I waited another 30 minutes before moving. Then I collected everything they'd planted. 2 bags of cocaine, a thumb drive hidden in Rachel's jewelry box, and a burner phone taped under my desk in the basement office. The thumb drive contained financial records suggesting I'd been skimming money from client accounts. The burner phone had text messages indicating I was having an affair with a client. All of it fake, but convincing enough to cause problems in divorce court. I photographed everything, then put it all back exactly where they'd left it. Let them think their plan was working. My phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Text from an unknown number. Check your email. The email contained a single attachment, a video file showing me meeting with Frankie at the diner, with audio that had been edited to make it sound like we were planning to intimidate witnesses and hide assets. The message was clear: they had ammunition, and they weren't afraid to use it. I forwarded the video to Tom Bradley with a note: need this analyzed for editing, priority 1. Then I went to bed, setting my alarm for 5 a.m. Tomorrow was going to be a busy day. Catherine Mills looked like a woman who ate opposing lawyers for breakfast and used their bones to pick her teeth. Her office was all sharp angles and expensive furniture, designed to intimidate anyone who walked through the door. "Tell me everything," she said, without preamble. I laid out the whole story: the affair, the financial manipulation, the planted evidence, the surveillance. She listened without interruption, taking notes in precise handwriting. "How much evidence do you have?" she asked when I finished. I handed her a thick folder. Photos, financial records, communications intercepts, video surveillance of the break-in, everything. She flipped through the documents, her expression growing more interested by the page. "This is good, very good, but they're going to claim you obtained some of this illegally." "The surveillance of my own home is legal. The financial records are from joint accounts I have every right to access. The photos were taken in public places." "What about the communications intercepts?" "My security business has certain capabilities. As long as I'm investigating threats to my clients, which technically includes myself, I'm within legal boundaries." She smiled for the first time since I'd walked in. "I like you, Daniel. Most of my clients come in here crying about how they've been wronged. You come in with a battle plan." "So you'll take the case?" "Oh, I'll take it. And when I'm done, your wife is going to wish she'd never heard of divorce court." My meeting with Peterson Industries was scheduled for 2 o'clock. I arrived 15 minutes early and was shown to a conference room where Peterson himself was waiting with 2 other executives I didn't recognize. "Mr. Morgan, thank you for coming. You mentioned security concerns?" I did. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a folder. "I've discovered some irregularities that could affect your government contract." Peterson's face went serious. "What kind of irregularities?" "It appears that someone within your organization has been sharing confidential information with outside parties, specifically details about your security requirements and contract negotiations." I slid a photograph across the table, Ethan and Rachel entering the law office together. "This is your employee, Ethan Blackwell, meeting with divorce attorneys. The woman with him is my wife, who has been representing herself as the primary contact for your security contract." Peterson studied the photo. "I don't understand. What does Mr. Blackwell's personal life have to do with our security?" "The problem is that they're planning to take your contract with them when they start their own company. Industrial espionage, corporate theft, breach of fiduciary duty, take your pick." I produced more documents, financial records showing Rachel's new business accounts, communications between her and Taylor about the Peterson deal, evidence of Ethan's access to confidential files. "My God," Peterson breathed. "How long has this been going on?" "Months, possibly longer. And here's the real problem. If the government discovers that your security consultant has been compromised, they'll pull the contract immediately. National security trumps everything else." Peterson's face had gone pale. "What do you recommend?" "Immediate termination of Ethan Blackwell, full audit of all files he's had access to, and a new security consultant who hasn't been compromised." "You're talking about yourself." "I'm talking about protecting your business. What you do about the contract is your decision." Peterson looked at his executives, who both nodded grimly. "Mr. Blackwell will be terminated immediately. We'll also need a full report on this security breach. I'll have it to you by tomorrow morning." I left Peterson Industries knowing that Ethan Blackwell's career was effectively over. 1 down, 2 to go. My phone rang as I walked to my car. Tom Bradley. "Daniel, I've got your background check on Blackwell. You're going to love this." "Talk to me." 3 sexual harassment complaints in the last 5 years, all settled out of court. 2 DUI arrests that were mysteriously dropped. And here's the kicker. He's been embezzling from his expense account. Small amounts, but consistent. I've got bank records showing deposits that don't match his reported income. Can you document all of this? Already done. I'm sending you a complete file. What about the video analysis? Definitely edited. Whoever did it was good, but not perfect. I can prove it was manipulated. I drove home feeling like the tide was finally turning. But when I pulled into my driveway, I saw Rachel's car parked in front of the house. She was waiting for me in the living room, still wearing her business suit, her face a mask of controlled fury. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "About Ethan. About Peterson Industries. About whatever game you think you're playing." I sat down across from her, maintaining the same calm demeanor I'd used in hostile interrogations. I'm not playing any games, Rachel. I'm just doing my job. Your job? You got Ethan fired. Ethan got Ethan fired. I just provided Peterson with information about security breaches in their organization. You son of a bitch! Her composure cracked, revealing the rage underneath. You knew, didn't you? You've known all along. Known what? Don't play dumb with me, Daniel. You know about us. I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I'd been married to for 15 years, and felt nothing but sadness. Not anger, not betrayal, just a profound sense of loss for what we'd once had. Yes, I said quietly. I know. She deflated slightly, some of the fight going out of her. How long? Does it matter? It matters to me. 3 weeks, maybe a month. Why didn't you say anything? What was I supposed to say? Honey, I know you're sleeping with your coworker and planning to steal my business and frame me for crimes I didn't commit. How exactly does that conversation go? Her face went white. I know about everything, Rachel. The lawyers, the planted evidence, the surveillance, the fake business accounts, all of it. She stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? I don't know. I fell in love with someone else. It happens, Daniel. People grow apart. Growing apart is one thing. Industrial espionage and evidence tampering is something else entirely. She turned back to face me. What do you want? I want a divorce. Clean, simple, equitable. You keep what's yours, I keep what's mine. No lies, no games, no revenge. And if I don't agree? I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo, her and Ethan entering his apartment building the night before. Then I release everything to the media. Your affair, Ethan's embezzlement, the evidence tampering, all of it. Your reputation will be destroyed, Ethan will probably face criminal charges, and your father will have to explain to his military buddies why his daughter is a national security risk. She stared at the photo, her face cycling through various emotions: anger, fear, resignation. You bastard, she whispered. I learned from the best. She sat back down, suddenly looking older than her 39 years. What are your terms? Simple. You file for divorce citing irreconcilable differences. No contest, no custody battles since we don't have kids. You keep your personal assets, I keep the business and the house. We split the joint accounts 50-50. That's it? That's it. Clean break, no hard feelings, we both move on with our lives. And the evidence you have? Gets buried, as long as you stick to the agreement. She was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the street where we'd planned to grow old together. I did love you, she said finally. In the beginning. I know. I loved you too. When did we stop? I don't know. Maybe we just became different people. She nodded slowly, then stood up. I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers. Rachel? She turned back at the door. For what it's worth, I hope you and Ethan are happy together. Ethan's gone. He left town this afternoon. Said he needed to start over somewhere else. I wasn't surprised. Men like Ethan Blackwell were good at running when things got complicated. I'm sorry. No, you're not. She was right. I wasn't sorry at all. After she left, I sat in the empty house for a long time, thinking about 15 years of marriage and how it had all come down to this. Two people who'd once loved each other negotiating the terms of their separation like corporate lawyers. My phone buzzed. Text from Frankie. Saw the news about Blackwell. Nice work. I typed back, just getting started. But that wasn't true. I was finished. The war was over, and I'd won. Not through violence or revenge, but through patience, preparation, and superior intelligence. Rachel would file for divorce, we'd go our separate ways, and life would continue. She'd probably find someone else eventually, maybe someone who could give her the kind of life she'd always wanted. And I'd keep doing what I did best, protecting people from threats they didn't see coming. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined when I'd stood at an altar 15 years ago and promised to love, honor, and cherish, but it was an ending I could live with. 6 months later, the divorce was final. Rachel moved to another city to start her new PR firm. Admiral Harlow never spoke to me again, which I considered a victory in itself. Taylor Lynn tried to spread rumors about me on social media, but they were quickly drowned out by more interesting gossip. I kept the house, the business, and my dignity. Most importantly, I kept the knowledge that when everything fell apart, I'd handled it like a professional. Morgan Security Solutions continued to grow. Word got around that I was the kind of guy who could handle delicate situations with discretion and effectiveness. The Peterson contract led to others, and within a year, I had more work than I could handle alone. I hired 2 more investigators, both former military, both people I could trust. We specialized in corporate security and marital investigations, helping people protect what mattered most to them. Sometimes, late at night in my empty house, I wondered what would have happened if I'd fought harder for my marriage, if I'd tried to win Rachel back instead of letting her go. But those thoughts never lasted long. Some battles aren't worth winning, and some victories come at too high a price. I'd chosen to fight for my self-respect instead of my marriage, and I'd won both the war and my freedom. It was enough.